Well, you are looking at an absolutely gorgeous quilt, and if you come in here to the quilting quarters in Almonte, you'll see tons of them on the wall. So excited to be here today, and I'm joined now by Sue Shute, who is the owner here at Quilting Quarters in Almonte. Thanks so much for having us in your store this morning.
Thank you for
Fantastic. Tell us a little bit about your shop, because you've been in business for about 10 years now.
I opened 10 years ago. We were up by the grocery store just outside of town. Wanted to be involved a little bit more into town, so we moved down here. Will be 3 years in the fall, and I love it because you get walk-in traffic, you get lots of people coming in just looking around, and during the festivals you get a lot of people wandering in, and I like to be involved in the town.
And I love that you offer classes too for people who, like myself, have no idea how to sew.
Those are my favorite. Absolute favorite.
Because we're challenging?
Well, I love teaching beginners because you want to learn, you want to do more. I had one customer that started, she did her first beginner class. Before she was finished, it was an 8-week class. Before she was finished, she was working on her 3rd quilt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she was so gung-ho. And her mother is a quilter also. And I think the daughter has done more quilts than the mother.
Really?
Yes.
That's pretty impressive. I don't know if I'll quite get that far here today. So talk a bit about how this happens. If you want to make a quilt, you come in here and you pick your pattern. That's kind of the first step.
Yeah. What they do is either they bring in a pattern of their own, or we pick one off the shelf. And then some people want to change it up. Some people want to do it exactly the same. So what I do is we start with, if you want to keep it the same, we look at, we flip it over, it has all the fabric requirements on it. So we start with picking everything that they want. Now, a lot of people have wanted to do this quilt, so you
have it all ready to go.
Have it ready. It just needs borders. So all of this out here. Now, some people wanted to do the piece border. Other people like to change it up and make it very simple and do just a straight border like the first quilt that you saw.
And what about in terms of color? Could you make them in different colors, or do you always have to follow the same pattern?
You can make it any color you want. Me personally, I'm not a blue person. Okay. So what I did in this pattern, I changed out the blue and made it brown.
Okay. Yeah. That's very interesting. So people can kind of choose something, but it can look totally different depending on how you customize it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And this is the interesting step to me. You have to go home and sew the quilt yourself.
Yes, because these are just big pieces. So what you do is you go home with your pattern. Now this is another pattern, but you go home and you will have to start with cutting all your pieces, and then you sew them together. This one has piecing and applique on it, so it's a little bit more advanced than a beginner class.
Right.
But then what they do is they will finish this up, and then they'll come back to me and look for backing, and then
which is the back of the quilt.
And then the batting we put in, and then we can quilt it. Now people can either leave it with me to quilt, or they can quilt it on their own sewing machine.
And this is what was fascinating to me, because I didn't realize that it was a 2-step process. I kind of thought that you sewed and quilt at the same time.
There is that technique.
Okay.
There is a quilt as you go. So, but most people end up with this. So you take a big piece of material, you cut it up into little pieces, and you sew back together to make a big piece of material.
And now, is this done by hand or by a sewing machine?
Oh, I do everything by sewing machine.
Okay.
I don't do anything by hand.
Yeah, I was going to say that would take quite a long time.
It does.
And then the finished product looks something like this. When they come back and they bat it all and get it quilted, that's when you kind of see that texture and that typical quilting that we're familiar with.
Yep.
Perfect, thanks so much. And you're actually going to show us how to use the long arm coming up a little bit later. We're also going to learn how to sew here, so stay with us. Lots more to come on CTV Morning Live.